Okay, we'll call the City of Kewaunee Common Council meeting to order for February 10th, 2025. Please stand for pledge allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
You sure?
No.
Just hit the speaker thing and mute. Like
Just
where
down
down
here?
here. Yeah. Just mute that so it's
Oh, there you go.
I'm gonna mute the whole thing, no?
and then you should be.
That one muted on mine though.
Is it playing on yours? Is your sound playing
It's
on
never
yours?
done
I
that.
don't
You
know.
could lower the volume on yours.
No, I mean for online, anybody watching, are they gonna be able to
No,
hear?
no, that's just.
Just in here.
Okay.
That should be good.
So then I should begin.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll move on to item 3, approval of January 13th, 2025 Common Council minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment communications, 3-minute time limit per person. Is there anyone that wishes to speak under public comment this evening? Come up, please state your name and address.
Joe Mills, 1124 Elite Street. My issue is with the fire protection. First enacted that. I read the ordinance or the state statute to you saying that those of us that have double lots, you weren't allowed to charge us for those. But you passed it anyway, and we've been getting charged for it until you got a new rate from the PSC. But nothing was done about the supposedly past due that we owed on the second lots or more than. Because I think there's around 54 of us somewhere in there. And now it showed up on my tax bill as a delinquent utility fee. And I still didn't pay it because it's not a legal charge. And now I have a delinquent tax amount. So I'm just asking you, folks, would you please fix this? Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak under public comment this evening? Hello?
Hi. My name is Susie Leist. I live at 290 Crestview Drive, Luxembourg, Wisconsin. I work at Four Legged Friends Veterinary Clinic, and we are a cause for pause, Kewaunee County. I don't know if you've heard about us already, but we started this group for Kewaunee County to get a contract with the Humane Society, because Kewaunee County does not have a contract with the Humane Society. And we are working through the Greater Green Bay Community Foundation to be a nonprofit. And we just recently signed with the city of Algoma. And that was last Monday, right? Last Monday, they signed the contract. And so we are here tonight to have Kewaunee do the same thing. So we have some folders here with our information and what our mission is to do. So. Any questions? All our information is in the folder. We have a Facebook page, Pause for Kewaunee County, if you have any messages, questions, and. Okay. Thank you guys.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak under public comment this evening? Is there anyone else that wishes to speak under public comment? Hearing none, public comment is now closed. Item 5, boards, commissions, committee reports, and staff reports. Are there any additions, corrections, questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
To accept and place on file.
Or accept and place on file.
I'll make a motion to accept and place on file.
If I would have only read that line that was so kindly put on there. So we have Nelson, is there a second? to-
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carried to accept and place on file. Item 6, mayor's report. Councilperson Jancourt has come to me and offered to assist with social media and other means of communications with the residents in regards to things that are happening at committees, the council as a whole, or any other information that we feel needs to be presented to the citizens of Kewaunee. And she will probably do something like that maybe on a monthly basis and forward that on to myself and Heath, and then put that out as an official correspondence for the city. So if your committee has any information that needs to be disseminated, definitely get in touch with her, and I appreciate her stepping up and willing to do that for us. All right, item 7, business agenda. 7A, consider amendment to 2025 fee schedule for cemetery cost.
Yeah, office staff has concerns about the billing process for grave opening and closing for casket burials including charges for winter. The city is the property owner for the Riverview Cemetery. We technically contract with the burial company, which is usually Weiss Memorial and Burial Vault of Algoma, to do the grave excavation and then post cleanup of the plot. And then get billed by Weiss, which I've included in the attachment, the bill for this month. The funeral home usually contacts Weiss to do the work, and then Weiss schedules with the city so that staff can do the following: check the site for any issues present, mark the plot location with the burial team, follow up with office staff or any prior burials at the site, verify there's actually space, which is typically for cremation burials as opposed to full casket, and then post burial follow up to ensure the site's been cleaned, leveled, and sodded when it's not winter. Any of these items is a short response time to staff, only situations involving extensive staff time or when snow needs to be cleared or needs to be scheduled, or making sure that the cemetery is plowed or cleared for any kind of burials in the winter. And usually the bigger issues in the older part of the cemetery, which most of the time we don't have any issues because there's usually nothing happening. The issue for office staff is billing. The current fee schedule is written based on the time when the city would do the grave excavation and restoration process, which hasn't happened in at least 10 years, according to staff. I've attached the portion of the fee schedule with those fees on it. The fees we charge are not what are being charged by Weiss. The most recent invoice is attached, and below is a comparison between the actual burial fees charged against fee schedule. And right now we're surcharging $200 for burial costs and an extra $25 for winter ground thawing, which we don't do any of that. The city is responsible for marking the grave location oversight, and that's it. When we sends the invoice to the city, we then turn around and bill the funeral home with the additional add-on charges, which would be fine, except that they're also notifying the funeral home, so they know exactly how much we're billing them in addition. The clerk treasurer office staff have asked if we should consider amending these costs to try to reduce the surcharge or changing how the fee schedule defines it. To me, the real question should be how we choose to do this. Current process is that we pay Weiss to do what we used to do, then bill the funeral home for the same service with a surcharge attached. Technically, the charges we bill for procuring a plot in the cemetery are supposed to cover the cost for administrative maintenance, although that's likely not true. We've had this discussion back and forth that the cemetery is basically just gonna be a money suck because there's nothing we can do about it, especially when it's full. There won't be any income generated. It's just gonna keep racking up costs because we have to maintain it. We don't bill families to keep their plots maintained. We simply do that work. I had this insight on Friday that essentially a cemetery is a condo association for the dead, when you really get right down to it. Except we can't bill the dead for maintaining the open space and the other things. So there's an actual service being provided, immediate follow-up, and we're charging what office staff believes is perhaps a little too high for the actual effort typically required. Suggestions from staff is perhaps not yet ready for action by council, but we do believe that the following should be considered if not recommended. Either adjust the fee schedule to account for the city's role in the process only, or adjust the fee schedule to reduce the surcharge we place on the bill, or specify in the fee schedule what is being charged by which party. First one is most direct, but it would mean passing through the lease invoice directly to the funeral home with a secondary invoice from the city for our add-on services as I've described. Second simply modifies the fees in the schedule currently to reflect actual impact to the city in terms of time and materials. Third is probably the most specific. We would simply say fee charged by contractor plus surcharge for city staff time and materials. The one fee I would recommend keeping is the snow removal charge, although in that case, it's again, we's doing most of the work and we hardly have any involvement except for plowing the pathways through the cemetery. Monument fees are also included or charged so that we have a record of how big the foundation and monument is and when it is permitted to locate it. It's a pass-through function which is covered by Weiss and then billed to the funeral home. We haven't talked about this anywhere else. This came to my attention from staff late last week. And we wanted to forward it up here to see what council's thoughts are on this subject and if you wanted to pass it down to the community level for further discussion. So I'll open it up for comments.
I think it should be passed down to the finance committee for further discussion, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I kind of like to specify in the fee schedule what is being charged specifically. You know, and have a discussion to break it down. And I guess we could do that at finance.
Yeah, good. Right now, as I stated, the fee schedule makes it look like we're the ones doing that.
Right.
So it just needs to be, what are we covering
Right.
on the back end of so it should be, and nothing else, something like either we show what our fee is as a surcharge, or we say contractor's fee plus.
Right.
So at this point, can we just have a simple direction to staff to work with the finance committee and making a recommendation back to council?
Put it on there and discuss that at our next.
We don't need a motion at this point, then we're just gonna give direction.
Yeah, that's.
Anything else on that? All right, thank you. We'll move on to 7B, authorized posting of vacant administrative assistant position.
As council is aware, the administrative assistant position placed primarily in the city hall front office, was recently vacated. Position as recently vacated was filled in August 2022 at 20 hours per week, then subsequently increased to 30 hours per week at the behest of the then recent hire in order to facilitate access to health insurance. At that time, the clerk treasurer did not feel they could justify additional hours in the front office, but at the mayor's suggestion, additional hours were filled through working in the police department. This arrangement had been in continuous form for about a year and a half or so until the recent termination. Position is now open and is currently funded at 22 hours per week in the clerk treasurer's office and up to 16 hours in the police department, or a total of up to 38 hours per week. Recent incumbent had settled at 32 hours per week across both. Staff is requesting authorization to post this position for up to 38 hours per week. There may be an opportunity or need in future budget years to justify increasing this to 40. As noted, the position is described as a bit of a catch-all, but the advertising should emphasize that the position deals significantly with bookkeeping and customer service as it relates to dealing with the public. Those aspects are in the current job description. Position has not been approved in terms of job duties in the police department. Police chief can speak to those kinds of duties, but the key element is that part of the position is dealing with confidential records and filing of reports and requests for records on other similar aspects in the police department. Position is currently funded at $21 an hour. Suggested it could be a range of posting $18 to $21 per hour, or include a caveat, or as approved by common council, in case of a negotiation replacing hours with hourly rate or council's discretion. We're asking for some kind of recommendation. But our posted recommendation is authorizing posting at a wage range to be approved by council.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
I move we authorize staff to post the position of administrative assistant at a wage rate of $18 to $21.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
No second.
I just have a question on the hours.
Yeah.
Okay, right now, that position was at 32, so now we're gonna post it for up to 38?
Yeah. We're budgeted to go up to 38.
She chose 32.
She chose 32.
She doesn't want to work any additional hours.
No.
Well, we budgeted 38.
What she really wanted was, she really wanted to work 16 in the police department and reduce her coverage in the front office to 16. And front office staff, including the previous clerk treasurer, pushed against that idea and suggested that they really needed 22. So that's why. So when we came through with the budget request, I kept both options in there, so they're technically both in there.
I'm not so sure if I'm in favor of the up to 38 hours. I mean, what's the difference between 38 and 40?
Other than the fact that we're not funded for it. Yeah,
I mean, if we're gonna say 38, then why don't you just say 40? What's the difference, you know?
Well, it could be 38 for the remainder of this year, because it's budgeted, like he said, we're not budgeted for 40. It could be then at full-time at 40 next year, if the council would so choose.
Do we need 3 full-time people in City Hall in that office?
Well, it's not just in the front office, it'd be working 16 in the police department, so.
So now the police were okay with 8, but now they'd rather have 16. I mean, it's just, I can see the road we're going down here. So I'm just asking, is the police chief asking for another 8 hours in the department?
she actually requested that in her budget. She actually requested 16. But we wouldn't give her more than 10.
So what are we saying? Are we saying now that if we do hire this person, they will be spending 16 hours in the police department? Is that what we're saying?
Well, we could budget it, we budgeted for that. Whether or not council as a whole elects to do that, that's sort of up to you, but we're budgeted to do that. If Robin were here, she'd be pushing like crazy for it.
I can believe that.
Yeah, I don't know, John.
I know, I
was-
just.
It
when we
was
started-
for and approved, in the budget, and it turned out that, the staff member did not wish to work those additional hours as a whole package. In the police department, yes, it was budgeted in the police department, so those hours so far have been unused, those additional hours.
So we'll still have a choice whether it's 32 or whether it's 38.
It could be posted that way.
We could post it at 32 to 38. If that's your preference.
I guess.
Just like the wage range, the hours could be paid, on a range.
Was there special training too that went in with working down at the police station, police department?
I would assume there had to be some kind of access training or something like that, so I'm assuming they would have had.
Robin would be the only one to answer that. I mean, it would have been.
I guess the concern I have is that when this all started, we said all we needed was in the police department was 8 hours. That's all we needed. We didn't need more than 8 hours. Now we're saying we need 16 hours. I guess in a year from now, are we gonna say we need 24 hours now? Or are we gonna get to a point where all of a sudden now I've gotta have a full-time person? That's
It's the creep, I understand.
because that's what happened with this position. We originally posted this position at 20 hours. Didn't take
Well,
long and it had to be more than 20 hours. And the police said all they needed was 8. Oh, now it looks like we're saying we need, you kind of understand the road
Right, yeah, I know,
going down here.
I understand.
I don't want us to see in a position where all of a sudden now someone comes to us and wait a second here. I need a full-time person in the police department. And I need a full-time person in the city. That's my concern.
It's a valid point, John, and I don't think that, we're gonna know the answer to that question until it comes, but right now, we know the position that we're filling, which was being done at 32 hours with benefits, and it's budgeted for 2025 year up to 38 hours. So that's up to the council if they want to utilize the budgeted hours or not, and I would leave it open. in the job posting that you have that option to choose when you've got the candidates in front of the hiring committee, that we would have that option, 32 or 38, and the wage scale as well.
I could post a position for up to 38 hours with the wage range that we suggested, if that works.
We have a candidate and that candidate comes in. How would we determine from talking to that candidate whether we should give that person 32 hours or 38 hours and 16 hours in the police department? How would we determine that from talking to somebody, whether that person gets 32 or 38? Because you said we would have that option of doing that when that person comes in.
Well, you do, you're the same as you do with the wage, you
How
know,
would
do you wanna pay
determine-
them?
How would you determine whether it's 32 or 38? Either we need them 38 or we need them 32.
I think it's a negotiating tool more than the need. The need was already presented, that's why we authorized the budget. That need was already put forward to the council, and the council said, okay, if they need 16 hours in the police department, put it in the budget, and that's what was done by the council. I'm just saying it's a negotiating tool, just like the $18 to $21 an hour. If you get a candidate comes in that you think is a great candidate and you don't wanna lose them, and the only way they're gonna take the job is if it's 38 hours, what do? Sorry, we're only doing 32. I mean, you can do that. You have that option. If you don't say up to 38 hours, what are you gonna post it? 32-hour position? That's the way you wanna post it? You might not get somebody to turn in an application if they don't think it's close to full-time. You're just limiting yourself. But if that's what we think that that's what we need, and that's all we need, then that's what we post.
How many hours do we need in the office for another person?
What Brenda
would
was
be able to
doing was
determine that.
fine.
Hmm?
What Brenda was doing was fine. Kim and I, we are actually revamping what she was doing. Like, I am taking back over my clerk treasurer stuff that she was doing. And that's what was given to her previously before me, and that's what she liked to do. So that's what she did. But I'm taking that portion back over, and then Kim and I are going to hand over some of the smaller things that we need done, kind of like safe build. So I'm thinking that if we had 3 days of someone in there, you know, instead of leaving at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, if we had 3 days of someone in there all day with us, then we're gonna be able to make our day a lot easier as well. Especially when I do start getting into more of my clerk treasurer side of things as well. My only concern about posting it in 32 to 38 hours is that I don't wanna go down that rabbit hole again. Well, they hired me for this. And if we wanna give more, you know, is this person gonna ever want more? That would be my fear, because we just ran into this, right? Where this was the big reason why it didn't work out previously, because we wanted more, but they didn't want more. Now we're going back down that rabbit hole again. So I'm thinking if we're gonna post a position, we should post it for 38 hours and leave that negotiation tool out of there. So if we actually do need them, you know, for the full 38, then we're gonna be okay. Does that make sense out loud?
It does. I
Cause
just
I think that would be scary.
Right, but I just think that the 2 hours, 38 hours or 40 hours,
Mhm.
I mean, are we,
Are we gonna lose money on that amount of?
well, no, I mean, does it really make any sense? to-
Right.
We could have been
Say-
40 hours this year, but we
Mhm.
weren't looking at, it was just looking at the additional hours.
But
down
I
at the police
understand, I
department.
understand. what you-
It, by all rights, it'd be just as easy probably for 2026 to be a 40-hour job if it's gonna be 38. We just didn't budget that for 2025.
Right, I understand.
You know? And, I mean, I understand what you're saying, John. We don't wanna continuously be somersaulting and leapfrogging ourselves down the road and going higher and higher in commitment on something that we may or may not need the hours or staffing.
I wish Robin would have been here, so it'd be easier to find out what is she looking at. I don't know. She's not here.
Personally, I like the idea of leaving both the rate and the hours a little bit open-ended, because different candidates are gonna have different, rates of productivity. And if you have somebody who's got obligations to family or something, maybe they've drop off, pick up kids, and so they're like, I think I can produce in 32 hours what someone else might do in 40, but it fits my schedule better to work 32. I think you go with the best candidate for the job, so it gives you some room to negotiate, like you said.
Any other comments?
I'd like to amend my motion to include the hour range in the posting between 32 and 38 hours. Who's second?
Jeff, do you agree to
Yeah.
second the amendment? We have a motion and a second. The amended motion, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 8C, adopt ordinance number 655-2025 to amend section 94-8 of the City of Kewaunee Municipal Code zoning map to rezone a certain parcel of land from B3 Highway Business District to R1 Single Family Residential District, specifically located at 1640 Milwaukee Street. Mark and Sandra Dobek, applicants.
Yeah, attached is the ordinance to amend the parcel. It's 2.29 acre parcel. It's adjacent to a commercial sort of office building with parking area. It's currently zoned B3 Highway Business. It's vacant. Applicants purchased the property in the adjacent parcel to the east for future residential purpose, but this is just applying to this parcel. They're simply going to build a house and they need to rezone it to R1. Planning Commission held a public hearing on this proposal at their meeting on January 23rd, voted to recommend approval of the request to go to R1. Staff recommends adoption.
How far does that city limits extend south past that property, do you know?
It's right at the boundary.
Right at the boundary.
Adopt ordinance number 655/2025 to amend section 94-8 of the City of Kewaunee Municipal Code zoning map to rezone a certain parcel of land from B3 Highway Business District to R1 Single Family Residential District, specifically located at 1640 Milwaukee Street.
We have a motion, is there a second? Second. Any further discussion?
Just one quick question. I wasn't at that meeting because I was sick at the City Plan Commission, but they did, would it be possible for them, rather than zoning it, do they just intend just to leave it as residential? I don't have a problem with it. Or could you put residential as a conditional use?
Not in the
Leave it
B3.
B3 and put residential as a conditional use.
You'd have to amend your zoning code to allow that.
You okay?
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 7D, approve addendum number 23-1, an authorization to perform engineering consulting services with Cedar Corporation to create and implement a survey for community center needs in the city of Kewaunee.
Staff met with the mayor and Brandon Straighlow of Cedar Corporation to discuss the senior center group's proposed location, services, and the costs for development of a new facility. Had a couple of meetings at the group to go over possible features, programs, facility operations, and coordinate the project. What the project ultimately comes back to is, what is the proposed facility for? If the senior center group expects the city to maintain a new facility, the question is how to pay for it, and thus to determine the use of the facility when it's not being used by the senior center group. Costs to develop this facility will not be cheap in the current construction environment, and therefore it's necessary on the part of the city to have a multi-use facility at the end. With this as a background, staff agrees that Cedar Corporation additional input is needed from the community, and we could do this. We're seeking to create a grant, survey to gauge public input on what types of services are needed or requested, and determine if the city should participate in this service provision. With that, the attached is the authorization, which is listed as addendum number 23-1, and the last $4,800. This would be primarily web-based survey using SurveyMonkey. The city can create a paper version of the same for distribution for those lacking online capacity. Cedar Corporation is offering this service in addition to usual consulting services so that the city has a better handle of the public's interest in what the proposed community center can or should be, and what services we can or should provide, if any. The intention is that the draft survey will be prepared and then reviewed at the next council meeting prior to distribution, with a run through the public property committee prior to that meeting. Staff recommends approval of this authorization.
Any discussion? I know, Robin, you were at one of our meetings and we were talking about it, and it was kind of going round and round on different types of uses of the building and that sort of thing, and I think when we're looking at something a structural building like this, that we better have a better idea on how it's gonna move forward and what it's gonna be utilized for. And best utilized and not overbuilt or underbuilt, et cetera, because we haven't even gotten into that. There's been some images of what it could look like. And without even knowing what services are to be provided, how would you know how many people are gonna be there and how big of a building? So that's the reason for the survey.
And I did put together a survey that
You
I
did do one.
talk to, yeah, people at, the fitness center, the library, you know, and actually at the meal site. So yeah, there is information, there's input, and I think
Mhm.
it's good. And I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of potential for things to happen there.
At some time, are we going to address, what responsibilities we would have if the center is given to us, like, for instance, utilities?
That's all been
maintenance?
discussed so far, and yeah, we haven't gotten it narrowed down yet. You know, Nathan's weighed in on that too, you know, I mean, it's everything from cutting the lawn to shoveling the sidewalk, you know, into utilities, all of that. So we have to have a good understanding on what the city's perpetual maintenance and fees are gonna be going forward.
We did have a discussion in one of the previous meetings about grant opportunities that would have included things like, what additional services are you providing? And that was sort of what sparked the interest in doing the survey. Was we don't even know what we're doing, other than these basic sorts of things the seniors group was interested in. And if we're going to use it for truly community basis, then we'd like to know what that target is supposed to be, so we can maintain eligibility for something like that grant type of opportunity. So that's part of the reason for the survey.
Well, and the thing is, when I first looked at it, I was really shocked when I did research and found out in 2035 that 1 in every 5 citizens is gonna be over the age of 60. And that's federal information. And that age group is going to outnumber the 1 to 18-year-olds, which is the first time in our country that the senior population is outnumbering that youthful age group. So we need to, have things that may be directed towards that demographic in our community. So, and I think Doug was the one who mentioned it and said, he asked how many meals are being served and how many people are servicing right now. And he said, it was very small, the numbers that's being served. And he said, well, that's gonna just jump in the coming years. So it's something to look at and consider. I mean, when you consider your schools for people who move to your community, you need to start considering things on the higher age end too now. So, yeah, I think it's really good that we're going in that direction to find that out.
I'd just say, I think it's good that we're going in that direction and find out what kind of services, but I think we also need to recognize we're creating an expectation here that we're gonna do this. And that, do we have the funding to be able to do this? I know that there's money out there, but.
The initial,
That is-
the initial construction of the project in the building, will be privately funded
Okay.
from the trust. There will be possibly some joint effort, Nathan, like, we're hoping to tie in with some other sewer and water project type of thing. And as far as their perpetual maintenance and what the city would be committed to, yeah, we need to figure that out, what that's gonna look like, so the council come back to council and the council can weigh in on that. But I mean, the expectation is that it will be a reality. That's everyone's intent. And, we've been assured that the funding is there. But having said that, even though the city will be turned over to the city, we need to know what it's gonna be exactly, what the whole thing is gonna look like for us moving forward. So,
I think that was what Doug from Cedar Core said, just the fact that there is money there, the seed money that can be leveraged. because the grants are there. The grants are definitely there to leverage that, and that's what he
And
was
that's what
saying.
further extended the
Right.
survey idea, because we
Right,
were looking
because
at
we need to-
grants that were discussed that we don't qualify for if we don't know what
Yeah, but
services we're providing.
yeah, and I also think a lot of grants are drying up.
Yeah.
So, that's another thing to think about as well. If we're gonna, we gotta.
Right. But it's better to have
Yeah.
an idea of what we want and a direction, and that was kind of what was indicated why
Right.
survey should be done.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve addendum number 23-1 in the amount of $4,800 for a community center survey.
No second.
Get a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So I guess my only question is, thinking about the process we're going through for the corp. I'm not so sure that an online survey gets the ideas that I'm necessarily looking for, the kind of engagement. I haven't been able to really see the results of the corp survey right now. But I got a feeling I'm gonna see a lot of numbers and I'm gonna see some ideas, but I'm not gonna really see like discussion. I'm not gonna see passion for doing something really inspirational in the community. And I think this is another, this center is gonna, in order to get engagement, to support it on an ongoing basis, having more face-to-face conversations about it might be more important. I really like what I heard from Robin, like actually sitting down with stakeholder groups and having conversations and listening to people talk about, just ideas. And other people getting a chance to hear somebody else's idea, like, oh, I used to live in this community and we used to have, things like that. Things that I think are gonna get completely missed in an online survey. Now, there is probably gonna be a follow-up process where once we've got some data collected, there will be public meetings to talk about things like that, but I'm not sure based on Cedar Core's proposal that that would be included in this, the way it was for the core plan.
Yeah, well, the court plan had a thing that was more specific than all that, and it's also a requirement from the DNR. In this respect, all we're trying to do is we're just trying to get a handle, because we don't even know what we don't know yet. We want to try at least get a baseline of information about what people would be interested in, if this is the kind of facility that would be interested in over the long term, and then what types of services we'd be able to provide out of that kind of facility. So what we're aiming for is just this is just the first step, and what I would presume to be several steps along the way before we even get to the point where something is built.
And Brandon had said that they've got people that have put these types of things together before, and I don't think it's gonna be as deep of a dive. I don't think we're looking for that as so much as, are you currently attending a senior center? If so, what programs do you like? What would you like to see that aren't provided? How often do you go? Would you go to a new facility versus where it's at now? Would that intrigue you more to go to a new facility? I think that's more like what we're looking for as opposed to a deeper detailed dive. Would it be a follow-up later? Possibly.
I think one of my gut concerns, even more so, is that different than the corp, a lot of the stakeholders who are particularly interested in this center are probably not super technology savvy.
That's why we're gonna have a
And
paper copy available.
So I think,
We're trying to increase the options so that we don't just make it an online thing, where we actually have people.
Because the target group isn't gonna be going to a
We're
QR
trying to
code.
give ourselves a greater balance.
Question, because I know a lot of people who do not.
And
use
that was one thing in my survey was they did want computer training. That was one of the things they would have liked.
and I'm just
So-
thinking, I'm just thinking like, even if we get to it, just opening up maybe some hours where if this is a place we run, like we go where those those people are. And we bring some computers and we sit and help them with it so that we're really getting that information we want. Just, I don't know, I might be really surprised by this week's meeting with Corp. But if like, I still feel like there's too many people out there that haven't engaged yet on that, it's probably gonna make me wanna be a little more assertive with this one.
We keep on talking senior center. This is a community center.
Right.
So I assume that what's gonna come out of the survey is what sort of things could we do with, high school kids? What sort of thing can be done with the youth? I mean, it's not just a senior center, it's a community center. And I assume that there's gotta be a holistic look at this. Not just focused on seniors only.
And those survey questions as produced by the
Yeah.
State Corp, and that will come back to the council.
There was a problem, if you remember, Mr. Mayor, with what we call it, a senior center or a community center. Because if that went on the Marquette School property, a senior center was allowable, but a community center was not. From what I understand, after 5 years, we could then call it a community center if we wanted, but we could not officially call it a community center. It would have had to have been called a senior center. If I remember all the talk we had, all the discussion we had.
Yeah,
So
It'll be
that-
5
we have
years.
to be
It'll-
careful.
it'll be 5 years by then.
5 years will be up.
I'm just saying,
At the
if
end
we're,
of the
if we're
year.
going for grants or anything, we have to be careful what we say.
Yep, no,
Yes.
that 5-year window closes by the end of the year.
This year?
And we're probably not gonna see anything built until, well, after that point. We're
Okay.
actually gonna need funding anyway. Or when we're gonna be able to go get funding, and then the other piece is that the way this survey is gonna be structured, we're not specifying the location either. So we're trying to stay away from that specific marketing principle and saying they can choose to decide, the individual survey taker can choose to decide where they think it should go in their own head, but we're trying to avoid discussion, that we're just trying to get an idea as to what exactly is this thing we're trying to do. And then we'll start to talk about where to locate it, because we did talk about maybe site designs or basic sorts of things, and then we decided, no, we better not specify, because we want to make sure we keep that out of the discussion. We don't want people aiming it. We want to define the thing before we locate it, rather than doing the other way around. So,
And the private funding too is more for the senior side of it too, so I think that's part of the.
Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Dean
Aye.
Conley.
Aye.
Blaha.
Aye.
Brewster.
Aye.
Optidal.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Motion carried. 7E, financial report for December 2024. I would entertain a motion to accept as presented and place on file. Recommend place on file. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 8. Are we going to item 8 or item?
8A, they're both closed sessions. I don't know, you can do both of them, yes, theoretically. Yep. At the same time.
Okay, so closed session item 8A, common council may enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation, data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and to re-enter into open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it deems appropriate. Regarding compensation of paid time off for a departed employee. 8B, the common council may enter in a closed session. State statute 19.851E and G, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. And for conferring with legal counsel who has rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it deems appropriate regarding acquisition or replacement docks for the marina. So I would entertain a motion to go into closed session 8A and B.